As Jung Woo rests up from his injuries, Jung Tae decides to check the phone he received from Lee Jung Woo. There are 389 missed calls and 157 text messages. Jung Tae notices that the only one who isn't threatening Lee Jung Woo is Kim In Bum and gives him a call. When Lee Jung Woo finally comes to, Jung Tae and In Bum are looking down at him. Judging by In Bum's lack of wounds or bandages, it must have been a few days. In Bum asks Lee Jung Woo why he left his phone off, and as Lee Jung Woo casually answers that he didn't want to deal with the chairman, Kim In Bum explodes, leaving Lee Jung Woo confused. And upon closer inspection, you can see Kim In Bum's face still has a few scrapes and scuffs. He then updates him to the situation, letting him know that Kim Jin Woo was reported to be gone. But for more than that, he tells him about Yun Jung Yi. Until now, Lee Jung Woo has been treating the situation casually. He still doesn't seem to understand just what kind of shit he's in. He has the mindset that everything will work out because he can handle anything. But what about the people around you? Jung Woo is in denial. But Kim In Bum isn't letting him slide. He's furious with Jung Woo. He tried warning him over and over, but the kid just didn't listen. Kim In Bum lost not only his projected career path, but he also nearly lost his life. But more importantly than that, he now has to carry the weight of having failed to save that woman. He's left the organization. Lee Jung Woo's actions have cost the people around him a lot, even costing Yun Jung In her life. And now, as we move forward, we find out that they plan on catching up with Kim In Bum as well. Yoon Jae-sik has now solidified his position as boss and plans to crush Hae Sung regardless of how Woo-san feels. Of course, Woo-san won't care about it, since they plan on taking out the Jae-sik group anyway. Now that seems like a great idea and all. What they aren't taking into account is that the Jae-sik group is backed by the Dong Hae group. And unlike Jae-sik's small-time operation, they have some heavy hitters. Most notably, a young man not much older than Lee Jung Woo. But that's later. Right now, Lee Jung Woo decides to go to school, though Kim In Bum advises against it. Jung Woo feels he has to. Before leaving, he tells Jung Tae to contact Kim Bo Young to see if the student army is still available. As Jung Woo enters the school, the students are shocked. But it's not like that matters. Along the way to his destination, he comes across the class representative Yang Young-soo. He finds out a few things from Young-soo. As it turns out, Jung Woo has been expelled due to his disappearance and all the events surrounding him. Naturally, it'd be easier for the school if he wasn't a student there anymore. And while Yang Young-soo and Lee Jung Woo haven't always seen eye to eye, there's a mutual respect shown here. Jung Woo seems to have come to appreciate people like Young-soo, who live normal lives. While Young-soo admits that while he doesn't like the way Jung Woo wields his strength, he does appreciate the fact that he isn't a punk like Tae-han, who has been acting up since Jung Woo and Jeon Hyung have been absent. As they make their way to the office, Jung Tae confirms with Bo Young about the students gathering, and when Jung Woo arrives in the office, the staff is shocked. This also calls forth that one asshole, who doesn't realize that since Jung Woo isn't a student, there's little to nothing stopping him from handling business. Fortunately for him, Jung Woo is busy, so Kim In Bum takes him to the side to have a chat, while Jung Woo goes to talk with teacher Kang Duk Jung. He recalls the things the man told him before now, realizing just how right he was. And as he finally approaches him, he keeps his head low and breaks down crying, as he finally acknowledges the man as his teacher. Kang Duk Jung consoles Lee Jung Woo and reassures him that his future isn't over. But he also doesn't know the gravity of the situation. So before getting his life back on track, Lee Jung Woo and Kim In Bum have business to take care of. As they exit the office, the asshole teacher becomes the bitch asshole teacher, calling the cops on Lee Jung Woo as they exit, trying to frame Lee Jung Woo as the kidnapper of Yun Jung Hee. And of course, no one stops him or says anything because everyone just goes along to get along. It's really too bad no one gave him curtains. Jung Woo and In Bum meet up with Jung Tae once again and confirm the gathering of students. At that point, Kim In Bum tells Jung Woo about the meeting at the nightclub tomorrow night. Kim In Bum confirms that the organization has abandoned them both. And then, Lee Jung Woo calls up Yoon Jae-sik himself. He lets Jae-sik know he isn't looking for forgiveness, and he isn't giving any out either. He's coming to pay Yoon Jae-sik back for Yoon Jong-il. The next day, the schools under Lee Jung Woo's control gathered together. Lee Ki-ju and Dong Jin High, No Jung Rae of Ki-chun High, Kim Bo-young of Baesung All-Girls High, Jun Hyung-soo of Daeshin Public Engineering, Tae-soo, Kim In Bum's right-hand man, and the students of Dong Jin High, Yu Sung-ho of Hanchang Public High, and Yu Chul-hae of Dae-ti. Even Urim Public High School's Lee Young-soo, whom Lee Jung Woo defeated weeks back, arrives. Everyone has gathered on the word of Lee Jung Woo. 145 students total. An undeniable level of charisma flows around him. With 145 on his side, and a lot less on the opponent's side, they have a clear path to victory. Lee Jung Woo addresses everyone. He tells them that their enemies are professional thugs, not just high school, and that if anyone wants to leave, now's the time. But not a single person exits. Whether it be because they're assured victory, or because they believe in Jung Woo, or maybe because they don't want to be seen as weak. Who knows? Everyone is fired up. As Jung Rae says to himself, Dokbo should be a part of something like this. Absolutely agreed. Unfortunately, Hyuk's got shit to take care of. Later that night, the meeting between Koo In-chol and Yoon Jae-sik begins. As the men stand around wearing opposing colors, making it pretty obvious that no one came here to do business. They sign papers and exchange them. Koo In-chol reads the signature from Yoon Jae-sik more carefully. This place will be your grave. Yoon Jae-sik's right hand gives the signal to attack. Koo In-chol's men are caught by surprise, but the old man isn't. He doesn't look worried at all. Yoon Jae-sik is unapologetic, but also unaware. Koo In-chol then makes a call, and the Busan gang rushes in, wearing a third color. Yoon Jae-sik's gang is now outnumbered and facing defeat. His right-hand man says they need to go, but once again, Jae-sik's pride seems to be wounded, and he himself decides to fight. But this time, there's no Kim Jin Woo to stop him. So into the fray he goes. Koo In-chol, on the other hand, he doesn't. He's pretty old. But to be honest, he doesn't strike me as the type he wouldn't have stepped into this fight even if he were 20 years younger. Some people are sly thugs, not tough thugs. As the fight inside reaches its peak, the high school alliance outside awaits, allowing the gangs to wear themselves out before rushing in to finish them off. A smart plan. Even if you have the numbers, your side consists of high school students. The men inside that room may be more willing to draw curtains on these young kids. Jung Woo's cool head allows his side to minimize both effort and losses. As the fight rages on, Yoon Jae-sik shows that he isn't just talk, as he moves forward, taking down enemies in his way, to pay the Busan boss back for his betrayal. The Busan boss is firm in his actions, and unlike Koo In-chol, he clearly looks willing to fight. He and Jae-sik exchange fire. They seem evenly matched and equally determined, while around them the battle rages on, until both sides are equally worn out. Just outside of the nightclub Dokgo, the teenage army begins to move. The gangsters inside the club are taking a moment to bicker back and forth. Both sides are devastated, and then things take a turn for the worse. As the high school army moves in, there's a brief pause before Jung Woo gives the command. Slaughter them. There's no gap between the command and the charge. As soon as the period forms on Jung Woo's sentence, his soldiers are rushing in. The gangsters are caught completely off guard, as Kim In-bum singles out a target. He pays back the bitch-made nigga that snuck him from behind with the bat just before Young Jung-im's life was stolen. That guy was also beaten up by Jung Woo a few nights ago as well. And when In-bum knocks him to the side, the man is immediately swarmed by teenagers and jump. His time as a gangster has come to an end. After this, he should get a job at whatever the Korean equivalent of Walmart is. Lot Mart. Get a job at Lot Mart, nigga. The students are cleaning up house. The regular guys are going down easy, but the Busan boss remains defiant. It takes a crowd of teenagers to finally take him down. He definitely earned his spot as the boss, though it's probably over now. No one is spared, as Kim Bo-young yells out one of the most terrifying commands I've ever heard, proving herself once again as my favorite young woman in the series. She's 20 at this point, so I can't exactly call her a girl. It comes down to Yoon Jae-sik, who noticed Kim In-bum before anyone else. However, it's not In-bum who he has to face, and he should know that. The hoodie that Lee Jung Woo is wearing is Yoon Jung-im's. She wouldn't approve of this. He knows that. But he brought her along anyway. His fury is clear. However, Jang Sung-tae steps in front of Jung Woo to protect his boss. In the midst of his fury, he never saw the foot coming, and he goes down without much fuss. Or he would have. But Jung Woo isn't letting him off that easy. He knows that the real evil in this group is this man, and he proceeds to leave the right hand with less teeth than he started the day with. Lee Jung Woo talks to Yoon Jae-sik, letting him know what the situation is. Even though everyone could swarm him, Lee Jung Woo will fight him on his own. It's a habit of his when it comes to getting payback, breaking his opponent down when they're at their very best. The men who are still left standing attempt to move for Yoon Jae-sik, but the high school army is still fresh. They can only fight a losing battle here. Yoon Jae-sik lies to himself, referring to Jung Woo as an amateur, while deep down he knows Jung Woo is the absolute real deal. And Jung Woo knows this too. He tells Jae-sik to attack first, as he shows magnanimity to the weak. Jae-sik takes this act of grace and begins attacking. His movements give him away, making wide swings and telegraphing his attacks. He's lost his cool, and Jung Woo knows it. Jae-sik seems annoyed that Jung Woo is only dodging, but Jung Woo tells him to take a deep breath and calm down. Jae-sik won't be able to fight properly while overcome with emotion like he is now. Jung Woo wants him to be level-headed and to fight properly, just so he can see how useless it is. So he knows that he never had a hope to begin with, so that he can go the rest of his life knowing a 17-year-old high school student was the wall in his way. All his struggles amounted to nothing, because he falls here. As Lee Jung Woo deals with Yoon Jae-sik, the Busan boss has actually managed to keep fighting. He's now surrounded by the leaders of 3 schools and getting kicked around. Both he and Osori, the man burned by the arm of fire merely a few weeks prior, are completely done for, while Koo In-chul is surrounded by a bunch of teenagers with weapons who force him to kneel. He tries to act tough for a millisecond, but then he takes a look at the kids in front of him and thinks better of it. Yoon Jae-sik attempts to fight Jung Woo with his head cool and collected. Or so it should be. He still seems pretty worked up, but he manages to sweep Jung Woo off his feet. However, Jung Woo plants a hand on the ground and uses the momentum to throw a kick to Jae-sik's head, immediately following up with a second kick before the man can even fall over. His ability to adapt in a moment's notice is incredible, but even more incredible is his inhuman agility. As Lee Jung Woo leaps into the air, Yoon Jae-sik believes him to be completely open. He didn't see the earlier fight in the park, that's why. Because when Jung Woo kicks off his arm and flips above him, he turns around just in time to get kicked in the face really hard. Jung Woo remarks that Jae-sik is a worse fighter than Kim Jin-woo, mocking Jae-sik as he plants another blow into his stomach, a 1-inch punch. That leaves the man folded. It seems like Lee Jung Woo is leaving, but he's actually just getting some room for a running start, before leaping into a knee that slams into Jae-sik's face, sending him crashing into a table. Now backed into a corner, Yoon Jae-sik once again reveals his trump card, the Arm of Fire. These are hard to come by in Korea, if you didn't know. They use knives more than anything else. As he draws on Lee Jung Woo, Yoon Jae-sik draws the attention of Lee Jung Woo's main supporters. And worse yet, Jung Woo himself isn't shaken in the slightest. He understands the situation well, and makes it clear for Yoon Jae-sik. Should the curtain draw on Lee Jung Woo here, Yoon Jae-sik's curtains will also close immediately. Lee Jung Woo confirms this with Jung Tae, and Jung Tae isn't bluffing. Yoon Jae-sik can tell. That's why he isn't firing. He understands Jung Woo's skill, but also his charisma as well. Still attempting to get out of the situation, he tries to bluff his way out by offering Jung Woo a bargain. But the bargains aren't his to offer. Neither is grace. Everything is in Jung Woo's hands here, including Jae-sik's life. And nothing makes this more clear than when Jung Woo puts the barrel to his own forehead to prove a point. Still thinking he can talk his way out of this, Jae-sik makes a fatal mistake. He insults Yoon Jung-in. This not only sets off Lee Jung Woo, but Kim In-bum as well. It became very personal for him that night. But this is still Lee Jung Woo's move to make. As Jae-sik runs his mouth, Lee Jung Woo turns his back and walks towards his friend. Jae-sik takes this to mean that Jung Woo is willing to let him go. But he doesn't seem to understand that when Lee Jung Woo makes distance, it's just to get a running start. He runs, jumps, and before Jae-sik can aim the Arm of Fire at Lee Jung Woo, he's been struck in the face and slammed back onto the table. From the looks of it, his back is now broken, and his fighting days are behind him. But that doesn't stop Lee Jung Woo from laying more punches into his face, ultimately smashing him through. Lee Jung Woo gives the order to move out. Kim In-bum mentions that the police will assume that the gangs did this to each other, so they'll be in the clear. But before he leaves, Koo In-chul speaks up and says something very, very important to Lee Jung Woo. He doesn't shy away or mince words. It's the first time he's looked so bold. He looks Lee Jung Woo directly in the eye and predicts the future. You, whether you like it or not, once you step foot in this world, you won't be able to leave. Jung Woo calls bullshit. But we'll see. For now, he's leaving the scene. Everyone is feeling pretty amped up, but the police sirens break up the after party. Nearly everyone scrambles, but the core supporters stay with Lee Jung Woo. When asked what he'll do now, Jung Woo thinks of Young Jun-im and says that he'll live a normal life. As they stand outside, the cops pull up and enter the club. The students are in the clear, and Lee Jung Woo and his friends have put an end to 3 criminal groups. On the news, the reports say that the gangsters were arrested after destroying each other. As Kim In-bum predicted, Yoon Jae-sik is said to be in critical condition. Jung Woo nearly closed his curtains, it seems. As we enter the Chongwon GED Center, a lovely young lady asks Lee Jung Woo if he wants to go watch a movie. He flatly refuses, as is his style, but she offers to treat him. but he only ever refused her because he has plans. Outside of the school, someone hassles Lee Jung Woo for money. Given Jung Woo's status, it's no problem to share. But what's interesting is, he just let a guy call him weakling and didn't do anything about it. Find out the young woman's name as she stops to talk to him, Lee Se-jin. We also find out that he's a dropout. Over at Masita Chicken, Jung Woo meets up with Kim In-bum, Jeon Hyung-soo, and Kim Bo-young. They chat as Kim Jong-il delivers food around the restaurant. Lee Jung Woo is living life as a normal person. A weakling, as he puts it. His name was cleared of kidnapping, because that was a stupid-ass claim to begin with. The Union of High Schools is now known as the North Seoul High Union, but all of the influential members are moving on. Only Lee Young-soo seems compelled to stay. He's said to currently be at war with the returning second year, and it's not going well for him. But the others aren't interested in recognizing anyone but Lee Jung Woo as their leader. He's become a legend in the area. But he's not the only legend hanging around right now. Jung Woo himself has no interest in talking about that life anymore. He wants to move on from the subject. And then Kim In-bum says he'll take him somewhere, while keeping it a secret. When they arrive, we find out that they're at a shrine. A picture of Yoon Jung-hyun is there, but also Yoon Jung-im. Lee Jung Woo leaves a flower and has a conversation with Yoon Jung-im. He decides to keep his past locked away. The legend of Lee Jung Woo will float in the air, but the man himself will be moving on, living a peaceful life as a normal person.